Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jane if you're new here, and this is a channel about estrangement. I am estranged from my adult son. I am not a doctor, I am not a healthcare provider, I am just a parent who is estranged. If this subject interests you, please join our community. We are growing and we'd love to have you along. And welcome back to everybody who has been following me since day one. I so appreciate it, and everybody in between. So this video is going to be kind of hard for me to do, but bear with me as I try to explain my part in irresponsibility. And please stay until the end of this video, because I think I have a bombshell for you. I didn't know when I was going to bring this up or if I was going to talk about it, but I am going to talk about it. So I will reveal what it is at the end of this video. Yes, this is a little trick that YouTubers do. So I promise I haven't and I won't do it in every video. But this one, I think it kind of warrants it. So stick with me to the end and you'll know what I'm talking about. So I've read all the comments, or a lot of the comments, and I appreciate that we have people in this community watching this channel who are adult children who have, purposefully cut their parents out of their lives. And I appreciate that. All are welcome here, as long as you're respectful. And we have some pretty smart adult children here who, some of them, I really feel by their comments that they would love to connect again. They would love to reconnect with their parents, but they're afraid. And I understand that too. And every situation and every family is very different. So I can't put anybody, even our community, we have similarities, but we are individuals and we have individual situations. But I am glad that you are here. If you are an adult child and you cut your parents out, I'm glad that you're giving me the opportunity to explain my story and maybe to read some of the comments of the other parents, and you can see their perspective as well, because we all have our own perspective and that's all we have. But having said that, I can tell you that I am 67 years old, and I am not the most responsible 67-year-old you'd ever want to meet. I am far from it. And you could put any age from 1 to 67 and any age in between, referring to myself, and you could say I'm not the most responsible person at that age. I was not. Did that harm my son emotionally, physically? I don't know. I'm beginning to rethink this because of some of the comments that I've read. So let's go back. I'm also realizing that this channel has kind of become the Jane Chronicles. And I don't mind that. It's cathartic, I think, for myself. I do get, a little nervous about telling things that have happened to me and my family, but it's all water under the bridge. I can't change what happened. So I will give you some background here, some more background. I know I've given you some. So when my son was born, and he is my only child, for you new people, he's 37 now. So when he was born, I lived with his father. We were not married. We fought a lot. We were either getting along great or we fought like cat and dog, and there didn't seem to be any kind of happy medium there. And we lived like that when we first met and moved in together. And I had never lived with a man. I lived with my parents until I was 27 years old. I know, right? So I'm sure I'll get some comments about that too. Uh, I was an only child. Yes, my parents did spoil me. I don't know. Yes, they did spoil me. My life as a child was pretty easy, except that I was shy, and being shy can be painful in its own right. So it wasn't all that easy. But my home life was good. So was I equipped to move in with this man? No. No, I was not. Why did I choose this man? I don't know. I loved him. I was crazy about him. So, after about a year and a half of partying, maybe a couple of years of partying, and I mean, drinking a lot and fighting a lot when we drank. And, but having a lot of fun in between, I guess you could say. We set up house, we both worked, and we fought over everything. We fought over money, we fought over each other flirting with other people or whatever, the same crap that everybody does. And I had been told in my early 20s that the doctor didn't think I could ever have children. So I lived with that knowledge of probably never having kids. So lo and behold, he wasn't an accident. I started noticing the babies that were being born in my boyfriend's family. And, that mama instinct, that mother maternal instinct, whatever you want to call it, was calling to me. So I stopped using birth control. And of course I told him I didn't think, it probably wouldn't happen. But it did. And it happened pretty quick. And I got pregnant. And we had our son. And when my son was we had fought and gotten back together. He had moved out, moved back in, moved out, moved back in. When I had my son, I decided, I was 29. So I wasn't really real young. I was 29. And I wanted my son to have a good life. I knew fighting and drinking were not going to be part of that life. That's not a good life to have around children. So I told my boyfriend, you got to clean up your act or get out. Well, he just loved partying, and the way he worked, he was in construction. So they'd get off around 3 and they'd go to the bar, and he'd come home. I was stone sober because I was taking care of a baby. I didn't go back to work right away. I stayed home for a while, gave up a good job, but I don't regret that at all. But long story short, when my son was about 8 or 9 months old, we broke up. We got back together maybe 6 months to a year later when my father got very ill. He moved back in. And I think him and my son really bonded, because I'll never forget when he left again, and that was the last time, because we were, again, kind of toxic for each other. I'm not going to lie. We were. I'd bring out my son in the morning from his crib, and he looked for him. His eyes widened, and he looked around for his father, who would always greet him, tickling his tummy or talking to him or doing whatever he would do with him. And he did that every day for about 2-3 weeks. And then one day he came out and he didn't do it anymore. He knew he wasn't there. I don't know if that did something to his psyche. Maybe. Maybe it did. I don't know. So there's that. I'll never forget that. Maybe it meant nothing when they're infants like that. I don't know. He was about a year and a half old at that time, maybe. So he was still little, but I don't know, I wish I could have made it work with his father. I really do. And the strange thing was, when we finally broke up and he met this other woman and they got married pretty quick. She got pregnant again pretty quick. We became friends. I never thought that would happen in a million years. But we became really good friends in co-parenting. And he became responsible. I mean, maybe this woman helped. This woman did not drink. And she already had 2 twin daughters. And they were about 8 or 9 when he met her. And at first I didn't get along with her well because I think she was intimidated by me. Once she realized I didn't want him back, we became friends too. So it was kind of like a great situation, I thought, you know. And his father would see him from time to time and quite often, and everything seemed great. But then a few years down the road, me and my mom and my son moved to a small town. I wanted to get out of the city. I wanted him to grow up in a good neighborhood where there wasn't a lot of crime. My car had gotten broken into. We lived again in an apartment and there were drugs big time in that apartment. And I didn't want that. I didn't want to raise a child around that. So we moved to a small town and it was, you know, maybe 40 miles away. He didn't see his father much after that. I mean, we saw him, but it was different. So maybe that had something to do with it. But where my irresponsibility lies, I think, in number one, maybe not fighting hard enough to get along with his father and knowing that a 2-parent family is better than a 1-parent family for the most part. And then there was me being a single parent and wanting to buy my son things that I really couldn't afford. And when he got older, you know, maybe 12, 13, we had the electric cut off a couple of times. And of course, I'd pay it right away. I mean, you can't have, you know, it was warmer weather. It wasn't winter time, but it did happen. And he got angry at me. You know, he came home from school one time. He was about 15 or 16. And I had candles set up. And I thought it was kind of funny because, number one, I had already paid it. I paid it when I came home from work. I didn't always check my mail every day. We had a little post office that was, you know, I could stop as I drove in to our complex. Did I stop every day? No. I was tired. I had worked all day. I just wanted to go home. To this day, I don't check my mail every day. I'm 67 and I live alone. I don't check my mail every day. The difference is nowadays you can pay your bills online, and I do that now. Did I do that then? No. There really wasn't. It was long enough ago where I know a lot of you remember that, you know, you had to write a paper check. They were starting to do bill payments over the phone, and I did do that with cable a few times. And the cable, well, let's talk about the cable. My son wanted cable. And I get that. And we had that shut off more than a couple of times. And then I would feel bad. And whenever I got some money, I would pay the cable and keep it on as long as I could. But I was a single mother. I wasn't making that much money. And no, I wasn't getting child support. His father would give me money from time to time. And that was good. But I did not take him to court because he already had his first wife taking him to court for child support. He had a son when I met him. And then he had a child with me, and then he had 2 more children with his second wife. So there's that. Don't crucify this man. He's helped me more than I can tell you over the years. And he has a huge heart. Was he the most responsible person? No. And I think he would admit that. He actually died last year, and he died down here in Florida. And that was extremely hard for me because I always loved him. You know, he was the only man I ever loved. But I digress, okay? So no, I wasn't the most responsible parent, but I did the best I could. And we had a lot of fun. We went to the beach in the summer. I made sure we went to the beach in the summer, and we'd stay a few days. And, we always had food. And this is why it hurts me so much when my son says he went hungry as a child, because I had 2 grocery stores really near my work, and I got paid every week. First thing was the rent. Second was gas in my car. And third was food. And I don't care what was owed. I made sure that we had food in that refrigerator at all times. Good food. That was just how I felt. I just felt that was, now, could I have maybe stretched things farther? Maybe, but I didn't want to go hungry. I didn't want to look in the fridge and not see food. And he's growing. Children grow. I wasn't growing. I was in my 40s by then, 30s, 40s. I wasn't growing. You're going to grow this way. You're not going to grow that way. But children need food. They need milk. They need protein. They need everything. They need fruits and vegetables. So I made sure that was always there. And I am proud of that fact, that I did do that, regardless of what he says now. And it's funny how he doesn't bring up, the things that I know I did irresponsible of, maybe managing my money better, where, I could make sure that, the electric was always paid. It got paid one way or another. And I even got a new car. I got a good deal on the car. It was kind of a new used car. It had 6,000 miles on it, but where I lived, we needed a car, so I made sure I had a car. And I made the car payment on that. So, having said that, I did the best I could. To this day, I am not Miss Responsible. I've moved quite a few times, and I have gotten myself in some credit card debt. Right now, I'm in some credit card debt. I am working to get out of it. YouTube is helping. I only get my Social Security. That's all I get. But here comes the bombshell, people. Get ready for it. I always drank socially. I always had control over my drinking. But later in life, I was about late 40s, maybe early 50s. I think I was about 50. My son got into some trouble, and it was over a girl, and it got bad. It got really bad. He doesn't take any responsibility. To this day, he blames this on me. But I know this was him. He broke a couple of restraining orders. And when somebody is 18 and 19 and 20 and they have their own vehicle and they have their own job, yes, he lived at home. I couldn't stop him from going out. I didn't know. I was hoping he was doing the right thing, but apparently he wasn't all the time doing the right thing. And long story short, I had bored people at work about, my son with the violin, and I don't know what to do. I don't want him going to jail. I don't want him in trouble. I don't want him to have a record. He's got his whole life ahead of him. Nobody wants that for their child. And he was doing these stupid things over this girl that he was, puppy love, whatever you want to call it. They're very strong emotions when that first love, whether you're, 15 or 20 or anywhere in between. They're very strong emotions, and I know that from being that age myself. But anywho, me and his father started seeing each other again. He was divorced from his second wife and living alone, and I would go visit him on the weekends, and we would go out and we would drink, and I could forget my problems, And we ended up living together again and getting back together. And my son moved out. He moved out at the same time because he found this lake house that he wanted to live with his friends. And I guess he thought he was making enough money. I guess he was. So it all happened pretty quick. But over the next couple of years, my drinking got out of hand and I became an alcoholic. And I am an alcoholic to this day, because anybody knows once you're an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. But I have been sober for 8 years now. And thank God every day for my sobriety. Now, how did that affect my son?